people made comments that that's the case? Have things come back around where like, oh, well, they do their work for them and stuff?
Well,
I just
no.
wondered, like, okay,
Yeah, no.
I was curious
I think it's
because
this,
I could see an organization. The point I was parallel I was trying to make in here is I could see an organization in their mindset, like if they're not doing well,
oh yeah,
or something like that, or if this scholar resigns or something from the role, and they say, well, then just like they do colleges, well, they did not prepare them well enough.
Right,
The
yeah.
Casey Scholars was too soft on them. They need to
Right.
be like, wait, and it's just like, what? No, you need to, reside in the fact that maybe you were a jackass.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, nobody's ever like said that, but I think not enough credit is given to the students and their families.
Mm-hmm.
It's this white savior complex of, oh, if it had not
There
been
you go.
for Mr. Kaufman and that Kaufman Foundation, these poor children,
Right.
these poor black and brown kids would have never gone to college and never graduated. So good on the Kaufman Foundation. And it's like, no.
No.
That's not how it's not how it is. Like, we filled a gap in saying, like, okay, because a lot of the students have said, had it not been for the foundation. And I'm like, yeah, but you put in a lot of the work yourself too. We just filled in that gap, that equity gap of, you want to go to, this institution, like, okay, Kaufman can help fill that gap in terms of scholarship dollars to help make sure that you have books and
Right.
housing and food and tuition fees paid for, but you have to go in and actually go to class and do
your
the
part.
work. Do your part. And many of them did that. So yeah, it was just, I see us as, filling these equity gaps in these systems and structures that were put in place to not set them up for success, and at institutions that were not built with them in mind.
Yeah.
And so making sure that we just make sure, like, oh, there's a gap there. Let's
take
fill that in and make sure that they are able to get over it. But they're the ones that walked over the gap and did the work.
And from knowing what we're seeing now in the current landscape of workforce and talent acquisition and recruiting, that's the call to action.
Right.
Is you've done your part. We've got the development going. There's so many organizations out there that are investing into these underrepresented communities and providing this kind of full cycle of development, full scale development. And that's the call to action, is these employers need to step up.
Right.
They need to do their part. Their recruiters need to be more creative. The recruiters need to step out of their fear and their comfort zones.
Right.
To be able to have those conversations.
Think about these students. They're stepping outside of their comfort zones.
Yeah.
Going into, I don't know why, black and brown students have to disarm themselves and be uncomfortable in white spaces. It's like, no, let's flip it around. And I think just given the conversation that's happened in the last year with the murder of George Floyd, the conversation and the power has shifted.
Yes.
And students feel more empowered, more educated to do their research ahead of time on a company or organization and learn more about the culture and talk to people who work there and learn more, not just about the jobs and not about the pay, but what is it going to be like for me as an employee there? And they feel more empowered to ask questions about diversity, equity, inclusion in their interview process, talk about it on their cover letters.
I smile just because I love it. I love it when people ask me a good question. Everyone's like, "Ooh, good question," but I know it makes employers sweat.
And you can see them kind of, wiggle in their seats, like, oh, they asked the question, but it's like, okay, like, where have you been the last year? Candidates are going to start asking these questions now.
Yeah.
Be ready, like, be prepared, and then be able to give authentic answers. Like, if you're not doing the work, say it. Like, don't come up with some answer.
Yeah, we have a ping pong table.
Yeah. I mean, don't, like, that's inclusion.
Yeah.
No, just say we are still working through that. Be honest. You don't have to have the perfect answer.
That's great. We're working through it.
Yeah, we're here are the steps we're taking. And we want to do this better. We want to make sure that, our current employees that may come from marginalized communities are supported and feel inclusive, and we're including them in the conversation to make sure that this is a better place to work, and a place that people want to work. We want that rumor to go around that this is a great place to work. And I just want companies to just own up to it more. But they just need to be prepared that these questions are coming, and students feel like it's not going to make me feel like, because I think they didn't want to ask those questions because they're like, oh no, here comes this, Black person asking about diversity again. Like, no, now they're like, no, I'm going to ask about it. And guess what? It's okay to ask about it, because I think the power differential has shifted, and they feel like I could ask these questions of a company during an interview, because guess what? I'm interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing me.